Hey, and welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. I am your host, Rico Beard, and hey, a couple things came out, and I'm like, you know what? I don't need an excuse to talk to you guys. Let's have some fun. First things first, EA Sports came out with the list of the top 25 stadiums to play, college football stadiums, for their upcoming video game. Out of the top 25, there are seven Big Ten schools that were included in on this list. So figured, you know what? What a great time. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about this. Of the top 25 schools, the worst school coming in for the Big Ten, at least the ones that made the list, was Spartan Stadium. Michigan State came in at number 22. And remember, this is based off of the stadium. This is the fans. This is the atmosphere. This is the intimidation factor. It's not necessarily the team. Because Michigan State, let's face it, the last couple of years has not been that great. But the atmosphere and the fans, yeah, they show up, especially for night games. Night games are special. I mean, I can only recall maybe a handful of games that MSU actually lost at night. Last year's Michigan game, I remember they lost to Iowa early in the D'Antonio era. They lost Ohio State. They lost that night game. But mostly Michigan State plays at night. It's a different atmosphere. And I know a lot of old heads. I want the ball kicked off at noon. I like the day games and blah, blah, blah. Man, look, miss me with that. Night games is where all the atmosphere are, especially for the Big Ten schools, because under the lights, that's when you see the fans show up. MSU likes to do the stripe the stadium thing, with the fire and the smoke as the team comes out there. It just seems louder and louder. I mean, even going back to that defensive struggle in the Nebraska game, but they finally got Martinez to turn the ball over in overtime, and they ended up winning that thing. That was exciting. So I can see where MSU made it. Like I said, not based on the team because team hasn't been good, but in past history, and let's face it, MSU is also a place where top 10 teams come to die, especially if MSU is unranked. At number 20, I disagree with this one because I think this one should be higher. Based off of what I just said, especially with the night game, you don't want to go to Kinnick Stadium, the University of Iowa. Kinnick Stadium, I have been there and it's intimidating. The fans are right on top of you. There is very little space between the stands and where the team, especially the opposing team, stands. You could hear everything. And players have said they hear it all. Everything that is said, because there is no buffer. Fans are right on top of you. Normally, a blackout is ridiculous because if your team is losing, it kind of looks like an empty stadium, except for Iowa. It's intimidating. Iowa, I thought, should be a little bit higher than number 20. I mean, I just strongly disagree. I have been there. That fan base, it's really the only thing in town. They show up. And I always say, a true fan base, you don't see tickets being sold to the opposing fans. Iowa fans show up. That place is all black when they do the blackout. I think really you think about all the upsets that have happened there. I think Penn State is really the only team that can go into Kinnick at night and still walk away with a victory. Man, they've slayed a lot of dragons. So Kinnick comes in at 20. I would move Kinnick up higher, but that is just me. Next up, the University of Michigan, the big house, Michigan Stadium. Comes in at 16. If anything, maybe I swap them at least with Iowa because with Michigan, when Michigan is winning, that place is loud. But often, let's be real, when they're not, like the last couple of years, especially when you play the Buckeyes, yeah, it's a frenzy. But often, man, it's there. The student section shows up, but the rest of the crowd just quiet at times. It's And I don't know. It could be one of those things, kind of like Alabama, where you're so used to winning that it's hard to get motivated and get up for every game. So, but sometimes it's the quietest 110,000 people ever. Like I said, the student section shows up. So much props to the student section. When it's a tight game, it does get loud in there. It's not a consistently loud place. It used to have the intimidation factor, then it lost it. Now it's starting to get that intimidation factor back where when you walk into the big house, it used to be, man, that the big house used to be worth 10 points just on principle because you were there. The second Michigan touched the banner, you were already down 10-0. It's starting to get back there. Using that logic, it's probably 6-0 when the game starts because the crowd is starting to get back in there. It is starting to get loud. Still not as loud as Iowa to me. So I probably would swap these two and at least put Iowa at 16. Next up is a place that I've only heard of, haven't gone to, may try to go to this fall. It's Autzen Stadium, the University of Oregon. I've heard that place is just a pit of vipers. It's a smaller stadium. I think they only hold like maybe 48,000 people. So nothing like the big house that I talked about with 110,000. It's smaller, but they show up. It's loud. They're on top of you. And it's on the West Coast. Big Ten teams do not do well when they have to travel west of the Mississippi, regardless of the teams. Just take a look and you can see the record. I have not been there, so I can't speak upon Oregon, but Oregon's comes in at number 11. But just from what I've seen on TV and just from what I've heard from people who've been there, that is one of the tougher places to play. Ironically enough, it is the only new Pac-12 / Big Ten school that made this EA Sports list was Oregon. There is no Washington. There is no USC. God knows there's no UCLA. If anybody ever seen a game in the Rose Bowl, not the actual Rose Bowl, but just the UCLA home game, I'll put it like this. Plenty of good seats are available. As a matter of fact, whenever a school plays UCLA, it's kind of going to be like when you play Northwestern. That fan base will buy out the stadium, and it will be an away game for the Bruins. All right. Coming in at number 7, and I'm glad that they really saw what I saw, and then they really, let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. Michigan State, Iowa, Michigan. Yeah, okay. Last 3 schools, all are in the top 10. Just had to double check that I didn't miss one. I was shocked because I think that they did a good job including this school in the top 10. And it is Camp Randall Stadium, University of Wisconsin. And it's not just for the jump around factor, but the jump around is it's an experience. It's something that you could try to describe it, but you just have to actually be there to experience it and feel it. It's not just that. It's one of those where, man, I don't know, man. The people from Wisconsin may just be cut differently, but it's just a raucous atmosphere. It's intimidation. It's the sea of red that you're seeing. It is so much going on that, yeah, I was glad that I saw Wisconsin made it in the top 10 because it is Camp Randall is just it's a place where, man, you have to be mentally strong as a road team to go in there and get a victory. Even when Wisconsin is just a mediocre team, it is still a tough place to go in there and get a W. So kudos to them for putting Wisconsin and Camp Randall on the list. And oh yeah, come the start of the 4th quarter, when the jump around starts, yeah, it is. It is all that. All right. At number 6, once again, remember, it's not the team, but it's more of how can I put it? It's more of the atmosphere and probably the most intimidating night atmosphere. If I was this school, I would never, ever, ever hold a day game. I would be like LSU and try to hold everything at night. That's Beaver Stadium, Penn State. Penn State, the whiteout at night Even watching it on TV is intimidating. But when you are there, because here's what I like, it's one of those things that going back to Iowa. Everybody, and I mean everybody, is decked in white. I hate when you got those people, I gotta wear my lucky blue. Nope, white. It's a whiteout. We wear white. Now they try to do the stripe thing. It's not intimidating. Okay, seriously. If you're the AD of Penn State, don't do the stripe thing. Stick to the whiteout because that, with the little pom poms being waved, that is something at night where it almost takes your soul, especially when Penn State goes up or they take a lead, they score a touchdown. You hear it from all of those fans there, over 100,000 people, except for the small section that is whatever the opposing school is. It's loud. That fan base shows up. That fan base gets it. Now, the whiteout still works during the day. At night, yeah, that is the most intimidating place to play at night. I will admit that wholeheartedly. I've seen it. And yeah, if I'm Penn State, I would try to petition the Big Ten to play everything at night. Like, to me, they lost the advantage last year when they had to play Michigan, and they let Fox convince them to do it at noon. The second I saw that game was at noon, I put all my money on Michigan to win that game, because had that game been played at night, put it this way, it is so significant. If that game was played at night, Michigan may not have been your national champions because they would have had a loss early. Now, they probably would have still made it because they would have beat the Buckeyes and they still would have gone. But then again, I don't know, because maybe you would have had a tie and Penn State would have had that tiebreaker. The game should have been at night. You've seen the games when they play Ohio State at night at Penn State, man. It is something. It's must-watch TV. I always have to be there watching. Watching it on TV is great. Being there in person, I think it should be a bucket list item for every Big Ten fan, that you watch a whiteout at Penn State. But the best school overall, and they're great during the day, at night, and that's, we got to go to Ohio Stadium. The Ohio State University. The reason why I like Ohio State, man, it goes back to, once again, what I said about Iowa. It's an intimidating place to play because they don't sell their tickets to opposing fans. It's a sea of red. It's from the band to the Hang On Sloopy to everything about that Buckeye experience is all about them. And yeah, when you walk out on that field, if you're an opposing team, it is one of those places, kind of like Michigan, you're already losing the game and you're just hoping to come back. And Ohio State, man, once they get to going and get to rolling, that fan base shows up early. That fan base stays late, and they will back this team up. And when you look up in the stands, it is nothing but red. You do not see the opposing team's colors whatsoever. On top of that, they normally have a good team there. Yeah, I mean, and really, if you think about it, Michigan is the only one that's really cracked that code to be able to walk in there and get the job done. Other than that, when you play at Ohio Stadium, man, it's just an automatic W for the Buckeyes. So that's the EA Sports top 25 stadiums for college football for their upcoming video game. 7 Big Ten schools are in there. The Spartans coming in at 22. Like I said, you got Iowa coming in at 20. You got Michigan at 16. You got Oregon at 11. Wisconsin at 7. Penn State at 6. Ohio State at 4. I may have been a Freudian slip. Nebraska, I think Nebraska maybe should have been on this list of the top 25 schools because, once again, like Ohio State, it's like Iowa, it's the only thing in town. Fans show up from the first score with the balloon getting raised. I think the only reason why Nebraska's not on this list is because the team has been bad. But man, when Nebraska is good, that is a very intimidating place to play. That's one that I would have put on this list. Just my own opinion. I know they had to put other conferences in there, but I do think Nebraska got snubbed and they should have been in this, even if they were 25th. I think Nebraska should have been on that list. Also, new rule came out from the NCAA and the Division I Council. This is going to be interesting. They approved that they removed the caps for programs for on-field football coaches. And you're like, well, what does that mean? That's no big deal. Here's what it means, and here's why it is a big deal. There's no cap. It used to be that only a certain amount of coaches could actually be on the field. Only a certain amount of coaches could actually actively participate in practices. And, the analyst job was, okay, you're an analyst, but, I don't necessarily, you can't go out there and run drills. You can kind of talk to the coaching staff and give them the message, and then they pass it on to the players. Gone. Analysts can now coach. Analysts can be on the field, not grad assistants, but analysts. So when you see Alabama, one of those teams that would have a ton of analysts, these guys can now all coach on the field. Why is that important? Because it's gonna strengthen. The rich will get richer, the poor will get poorer. What does that mean? Power 5 schools or Power 4 schools will now be able to really think of it like this. They can poach some of the top assistants in Group of 5. So I was reading the article in the New York Times, and they used Michigan for an example, and they just said, hey, Michigan can go to a wide receivers coach at Western Michigan who's making $80,000 a year and say, hey, we'll pay you $150,000 to come to Michigan. You're an analyst. You help out the offense. Now you're thinking, well, why would this coach leave? Well, now you're on the staff of a Power 4 team. You get to coach. You get to, get your input in there, but you don't have to recruit. You don't have to, you can't go on. That's the only thing. They still can't go on the road and recruit. Only the head coach and the 9 assistants can go on and recruit. So you get to stay, you get to go home to your family at night. You're not on the road, and you make more money. You got a raise. Absolutely. You're going to see some of the top assistants from the Group of 5 teams. They're going to get poached. And either the Group of 5 teams are going to have to come up with some money to keep them there, or you're going to lose your best coaches. And they're going to go, and as I stated, okay, fine. I get my salary doubled. I don't have to travel. I don't have to go on the road. It's not necessarily a 9-to-5 job, but I get to go home every night to my wife and kids. Yeah, most guys are going to say, sign me up. So with that happening, you'll start seeing it, maybe not this year, but very soon. Yeah, if you're a Group of 5 team, if you're, just looking here in the state of Eastern, Central, Western, those teams are going to, Toledo, Bowling Green. If you're a top assistant coach, a young go-getter, an up-and-coming guy, somebody who has some type of innovative thing, offense or something, and you may even see coordinators. Okay, you're a coordinator and I really want you. I still can give you a raise, let you work on your offense with my school. Of course, you can't go on the road to recruit, but you're going to get a pay raise and you get to go home to your wife and kids. Just something to watch out for. The rich will get richer. It's unlimited. They can have as many people as they want, but the Group of 5 schools are going to have a hard time holding on to their coaches. So that just happened today as well. All right. Thought I would have some fun. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching the 5-Star Zone. Keep liking, keep subscribing. Tell your friends. Let's grow this thing. Let's get it bigger. When college football kicks off in the fall, Howard Griffith will be joining me again. But for now, enjoy this. I'll be back whenever news happens for the rest of this summer. I'm your host, Rico Beard. Thanks for watching the 5-Star Zone.